Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. On this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Ray Tyler of Rose Creek Farms in Selmer, Tennessee. Over the last 14 years, Ray has been passionate about developing growing systems to successfully grow and sell certified organic produce 52 weeks a year in Western Tennessee. Along with his wife, Ashley, and 6 homeschooled children, Ray is committed to creating a family-focused farm that allows for a sustainable and healthy work-life balance. Using a meticulous system of 18 caterpillar tunnels on 1 acre, Ray is able to supply 3 farmers markets and a farm stand with produce 52 weeks a year. His farmers market displays are called the salad bar, and they are always stacked high with gorgeous bunches of carrots, radish, celery, lettuce heads, and a varied assortment of greens. The early years, however, were a challenge for Ray, and we speak about how he and his family persevered with a lot of trial and error to become the successful farm and business they have today. Ray is an inspiring example of a passionate farmer who is committed to the health and well-being of his family, the business, the community, and the land. Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. Our same-day shipping can help keep your planting schedules on track when the unexpected happens. We're here to help you grow good food. Turning to Johnny's means you can plant high-quality, trial-proven varieties with confidence and know that our expert staff is ready to help with first-hand knowledge, because we've grown them ourselves. This episode is also brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses. Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse investment. Visit rimmel.com today. All right, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Winter Growers Podcast. Today, my guest is Ray Tyler of Rose Creek Farms in Western Tennessee. Hello, Ray.
Hey, Clara, it's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here. I've actually wanted to have you on the show since the beginning. So finally, our paths crossed. But we first met, actually, I think it was close to 10 years ago at a Slow Tools conference. Is that correct?
It sure was. Yes. I believe was it 2015 or 2016?
Yeah. So just about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe
even earlier.
I know. I can't remember exactly either. But anyway, it was such a pleasure to meet you back then. We were definitely geeking out on all sorts of tool stuff, but in a pretty incredible environment. I believe we were at the Stone Barns conference. So yes.
It was amazing.
It was incredible. But at the time meeting you, I know, you were still fairly new into a lot of the production models that you've honed now, but you had a really unique focus on doing your year-round lettuce production. And I was fascinated by that. And also, you're a first-generation family farm, which is really cool. And I love seeing how your kids have been involved. Your wife has been involved with this whole crazy venture. So this is going to be a good, fun conversation to learn more about you, how your farm has become the well-known farm it has become now. And so I'd love for you to dive in on your background. How did you get into all this? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, so the inspiration was in 2009, I got laid off from my job. And in that same summer, my wife had convinced me to grow a small garden for her. At the time, Asha, our firstborn, she was around a year old at this time. And we wanted to have a family. And my job really required crazy hours and just being away home. And so she really yearned for me to have a different home job so I could be around the family more. Basically, I was leaving before everyone got up. When I got home, I was completely trashed. And I quickly saw that this was really not the life that we wanted to have for our family. We just didn't know how to really make that change. So in the summer of 2009, we did this garden. I fell in love with the magic of planting the seed, watching it grow, picking it, us eating it. We were just captivated. And that fall, I got laid off from my job. And around this time, we really were smitten by it was really just this question of like, could we make this work? And around that time, a friend of mine saw the garden that we had, which was weeds were 7 foot tall. It was terrible. But he was like, hey, I think you guys need a little help here. And he handed me Elliot Coleman's old 19, I think it was an 87 paperback, harvesting the backside of the calendar. I still have it to this day. And I'm like, wow, this guy is doing this in Maine. What am I doing here? Like this really seems like it's possible. And so that really kickstarted this. Okay, let's find out how we can pull this off. That winter, we really did a lot of brainstorming. I found a grower in north of me in Kentucky. And so we visited him, and I paid for some consulting, just basics of like how to plant. I mean, we knew nothing, just absolutely nothing. And so from then, obviously we wanted this to be a business. So we knew that we had to sell this crop and make a profit. And we kind of knew right off from just market research that there was no one growing lettuce here in West Tennessee. Everybody is doing squash and tomatoes and peppers and all your traditional summer veg. So we knew that we weren't going to really have a chance competing with some of these established growers. So that spring, we really focused on lettuce, and people were just ecstatic. And so then that really launched this journey of, okay, well, how can we have this available 52 weeks a year? And so we found some land that was being bush hogged. It was unsuitable for agriculture purposes. And they had agreed to let us use it as long as we took care of it. And we're still on that same property today. So that was really the kind of whole foundation of why we got started into this.
Okay, great. Well, a few questions. I'm curious. So first of all, what was the job that you were laid off from?
So I was a welder. I was welding at night.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And before that, I worked for a carpentry company for almost 10 years, working on high-end homes in Memphis.
Okay. And do you still dabble in construction and welding since? Or I'm sure it comes in handy as a farmer.
It does come in very handy. But yeah, I mean, I love farming more than I do construction and welding. So I tend to gravitate to what I love to do.
And then I love how, too, that your approach was like, oh, I'm not just going to start farming. I'm going to farm 52 weeks out of the year. I mean, you basically took the hardest learning curve and path to jump into. But then again, you probably didn't necessarily know that, all the challenges that come with winter farming from the start. So you're like, why not?
Yes. If I had known what this was going to take, I don't know if we would have done this. So in a sense, we really had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it was, definitely peak winter and peak summer was definitely the most challenging part of having consistent produce year round. Anyone can grow it in the spring and fall, but it's really that peak summer and peak winter for us that we really had a lot of challenges honing all those techniques of variety and hardening off and keeping plants protected from, negative zero temperatures and the 130-degree heat indexes. And so it was really those two windows that we were trying to close in our production.
Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, that's challenging enough even as an experienced farmer. So
Absolutely.
kudos to you for for just jumping right in. And it sounds like a lot of trial and error. I mean, you had obviously my dad's books, but
Yes.
whatever resources did you have back then to learn this?
That was really it. I mean, I think I read his new organic grower book once a year, and then when the winter harvest handbook came out, um, my goodness, I probably read that thing 4 times a year, right? And of course, it's in Maine, and we're here in the South, but those books were really trying to hone in the winter because the winter was the challenge. No one here in West Tennessee has product. Uh, in the winter, just because even though we have somewhat mild temperate winters, we get that occasional 1 degree night, 0 degree night, which kills anything if it's not protected or hardened off properly.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. So then, okay, let's describe you have your home and you had some land on your home and then you received another parcel. Describe the farm layout for me.
Yes. So the farm that we have now so we are on leased land. We
Okay.
do not own the property. Again, we had $150 to our name when we started this farm. No money, no job. And so I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more cash, or at least some equity. We just didn't have any equity at all that we could pull from. So that was aside from lack of education and knowledge, it was lack of resources. So it was a slow grind for those first few years.
Yeah, no, that is a huge mountain to climb.
Yeah, and then plus we had 2 young children at the same time, so it was just that balance of trying to take care of them. They're young, and yeah, so it was definitely not easy. Those, I would say, the first 4 to 5 years were very challenging.
And I mean, you must have had many moments of wanting to
Oh,
just throw in the
every
towel.
single year, 100%, mainly in the summertime,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, it was really tough getting through our summers. And that's when we had the most, at least at the time, like, the markets we were attended, that's when we had the most customers that we could sell to. But we really struggled getting consistent production of greens and other products in those peak summer months.
And those are the crops that you would become known for. So you really wanted to capitalize on those. Yeah.
Yes. And so every year we just try to close that gap. And I think it was 2015 when I really figured out, I think there was like 2 weeks lacking in August at the end of 2014. And so 2015, I nailed it. And then 2016, we figured out how to have lettuce and other crops 52 weeks a year. And we haven't had a break since. So we've had it available every single week of the year since 2016.
That's amazing.
But it took it took 5 years or more to really figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. And so you are doing about an acre under cultivation, mostly no-till.
Correct.
But obviously you didn't start out right now. You have, in my notes here, you have 18, 16 by 100-foot caterpillar tunnels. But obviously you didn't start out with that.
No, not at all.
And if you didn't have any, real money to start out with, how have you been able to grow that? How have you been able to, build that infrastructure?
Very slowly. Our first year in 2010, we did manage to get a used high tunnel. I believe we paid $1,200 for it. And how we got that is I had done some work for a local grocery store. And the idea was that they were going to buy our produce and sell it at this grocery store. And I did some work for them in 2009. I built them a walk-in cooler and done a lot of help around there for free. And so at the end of the year, they gave me a $1,200 loan for a used high tunnel, which I went, took down, put back up. So we did have that. And that's what we started growing crops in January of 2010, which was our first year of really doing this on a production model. And then we just took every dime that we made and just put it right back in the farm. So it was a slow process, right? Because to get a loan for a new farmer, most folks need to see experience. Like they need to see profit and loss for 4 to 5 years. Uh, there's it's very tough to make it in farming, especially for beginning farmers. So we didn't have any. Um, and then where we're at in the county, because we were the only produce farmer in the whole county of McNairy, there was no program for any NRCS grants. So we could not capitalize on any of these grants for high tunnels. So we had to really just cash flow it each year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you really fought for this.
We've been fighting for it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then how did you know that I think your primary sales outlet is farmers markets. So how did you know that that's what you wanted to pursue? Was that just sort of a logical course of action for?
So our sales outlet has changed a lot over the course of the last 13 years or so. Our first year when we got into it, it was really just, it was the easiest, way to sell. There was a market about 45 minutes away. They had room, and, we had product in March of 2010, and there wasn't a lot of vendors who had product. So they're like, hey, why don't you come? And then once we had product, they allowed us to continue on selling there. And then from there, we quickly realized that the traffic was not going to be enough. And so we started to branch out to other restaurants and grocery stores and food hubs, and we started a CSA. And so our sales outlet has evolved. We were heavy in wholesale, grocery stores and restaurants, a lot of restaurants. And then COVID obviously shut all that down. So we pivoted hard to markets to make that transition.
And so what's your current sales breakdown look like now? Are you exclusively farmers markets, or do you still have a combo?
Yeah. So last year, I would say it was around 90% farmers markets and around 10% online sales.
Okay. And so really no more wholesale then? No more direct wholesale?
We are going to bring wholesale back. There's a really great wholesale grocery store chains that we're working with. Some of our markets are going through some internal changes just with parking, and it's about to move locations. So we're going to kind of bridge that gap by getting some other grocery stores back online.
So you've got 3 farmers market. How many of those are year round?
They're all year round.
3 farmers markets year round. Wow.
Yes. 2 are outdoors, which is really tough when it's -2.
Yep.
And then the other one is indoor, which is nice because it's heated and cooled. And my wife and a few of our children attend that one.
Okay. And all of this is coming from 1 acre.
1 acre.
That is incredible.
Yep. Yeah.
So now I'd love to dig into a little bit more of your production model, especially with how do you plan to make sure you have harvestable crop every single week of the year for 3 farmers markets?
Yes. So number one, what we did early on is we started to be more aggressive about collecting data when we seed, when we plant, when we harvest. And this is really important in the wintertime because each year that those harvest dates can fluctuate depending on how cold it is, how many days or weeks of overcast weather. But we do try to track that. And then every 2 or 3 years, we'll analyze that data and maybe make changes. Like the last 2 winters have been really cold. Last year, the wind chill was -20, which is really cold for West Tennessee. And it didn't kill anything, but it did slow down growth quite a bit. We use crop steering to kind of help speed that up. And then we had a similar week this last month. And so we kind of know now, hey, we're kind of seeing a trend here. It could warm up in a few years, but we are going to make some changes for the 2024-25 winter growing season. Um, what we try to do is, because it's much easier to have a lot more production in the summertime, because the transplant to harvest window is 3 weeks versus 8 to 12 weeks. So we don't have as much in the wintertime. And so, but what we do, what we also do in the summertime is we have a lot of other summer veg. So we're doing all the tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, squash and zucchini and okra. So we kind of aim to have, let's just say, 100 to 200 pounds of salad mix a week, 400 head of head lettuce, and we try to keep that pretty consistent year round. So we have a lot more beds planted in the wintertime than we do in the summertime. And what we try to do is make sure we have as much of our lettuce planted, early fall, mid-fall. And then I like to have a lot of trays of transplants in the greenhouse on standby, because we haven't been able to predict the exact week of harvest on this certain crop.
Right.
So let's just say 3 or 4 years ago, we had this December that was like in the 70s, which was just unusually warm. And what happened is crops were ready for harvest earlier. And what I ran into was I didn't have anything ready to go in its place. And so I kind of learned, let's have some stuff on standby just in case we have one of those months that's unseasonably warm. So we try to have a lot of beds planted, ready to go. And then we don't use a lot of row cover early in the fall or early winter. We like them to really get hardened off with that cold. So when we do get that 0-degree night or week, those plants are a lot more hardened off. Now, the problem with that is that it does take a bit more time for those crops to grow. But what we have found is that if we kind of have that insurance, like I would rather have the insurance of a cold tolerant plant than a lot of production and a lot of rapid growth. So we kind of throttle down the growth to have really cold resilient plants.
And that's because all of the caterpillar tunnels are unheated. So, yep. So you're just relying on, on the passive, solar gain. Yep.
Exactly. And here's a good example. So this past fall and winter, we didn't use any row cover at all. It got really cold in those tunnels. And then when we had that week when it was without the wind chill, -11, we covered with a row or two of fabric. And so that saved all of our lettuce. Like it did just fine. Just fine.
So it's more of like using the extra layer just as needed, and for the most part, trying to
just as
keep things
needed.
simple. Yeah,
right. That's right. And by doing that, it also helps prevent pests and diseases. And the more airflow you have in the wintertime, the more disease resistance those plants will be.
And are these Farmer's Friend cat tunnels? What's the brand?
These are a mix. Some of them are Farmer's Friend, and a few of them are ones that my wife and I had built back in 2016.
Okay.
So in 2016, I landed my first big restaurant account. It was 100 pounds a week, and they needed consistency. Like it was a big one. They were willing to pay really good money for it, but they needed insurance from us that we were going to deliver no matter what. So we built our own. I think we built 8. And that was enough to kind of make sure that every single week of the year during that wintertime, we had product.
Wow. And were you able to deliver as they expected?
Nailed it.
Amazing.
Yes. So my wife and I had bent those and put them up, and we found a great source of local pipe that was really cheap, and got poly and just did it ourselves. And then because those were done ourselves and they were with smaller pipe, we have upgraded most of those to Farmer's Friends tunnels.
And is that just because you want to have the structure of them a little bit beefier to deal with winds and other conditions? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Like, we get 70-mile-an-hour winds here in the springtime. And so there was the factor of wind, the factor of snow load, which we don't get a lot, but once a year we'll get a few inches. And so we just wanted to have the strength of the Farmer's Friend, and the Farmer's Friend tunnels are bigger. So if you get the lift kit, it really gives you a lot more room to work. The team loves working in the Farmer's Friend versus those small ones that my wife and I made. So each year, I kind of look at not only how can we grow more nutrient-dense plants, but how can we make the growing environment for our team more enjoyable. So I'm really looking at the comfort of our team.
Yes. No, I mean, huge difference to be harvesting in a tunnel versus out in the pouring, freezing rain.
and we've had many of those years where, rain or shine, we're out there harvesting in November when it's pouring down rain to get ready for market. So with tunnels, it really does make just the working environment very reliable and consistent, and it prevents burnout.
Yeah. And are you running these tunnels probably as cool as possible? You've got, I'm assuming, roll up sides. You're keeping those open as much as you can, of course, because of your hardening off process. Yep.
That is correct.
And what can you describe for, what's the layout inside? Are you using fabric, landscape fabric? What is the setup that you have?
Yeah. So the setup is we have 4 30-inch beds per tunnel. And anything that is transplanted, we use fabric. And of course, direct seeded is bare soil. The primarily reason why we use fabric is it does several things. Number one, weeds. Like we don't do any cultivation here. Team doesn't like cultivating. We have a 8-hour day where we're pretty strict about it. So we just don't have a lot of that time. It keeps the soil warmer in the winter. We did the side-by-side trial with 1 year. I think this was back in 2017. We did a bed in a cat tunnel with paper pot and one with fabric. And the lettuce that was planted in fabric was ready for harvest 2 weeks earlier.
Wow.
In December. And so we saw a massive difference, no cultivation. It, helps retain soil moisture. It keeps the microbes, healthy and thriving. And then it does a similar thing in the summertime. So the surface of our soil in the summer can be 143 degrees, just the surface of the soil. And with that heat, there's no microbes, there's no earthworms near the surface of that soil. Where underneath the fabric, the surface of the soil underneath fabric can be 83 degrees. So we see a lot more biological life, earthworms and microbes helping cycling all these nutrients in the summer.
Yeah, no, those stats alone make it justify using it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and so here's another reason why we kind of changed to fabric is I kind of try to look at every step and system that we have on the farm as a whole, like from seed to store. And when we were using the paper pot transplanter, it did save time planting. But, my wife was in the pack shed 1 day a week. And, she's homeschooling children and all the home stuff that she's doing. And so when we switched to paper pot, she was like, Ray, I understand that it's saving you time in the field, but it's taken me 3 times longer to wash this lettuce because how filthy it is. And this was a lot when we were in open fields and we were just getting 6 inches in a 12-hour window. And it was just too much. And so when we made that change, it just completely saved her so much time. She was happier. And then I quickly saw, okay, yeah, it's saving us, say, 30 minutes of planting, but it's adding another 2 hours to her washing process because we really want to have clean, really nice, high quality produce.
Yeah.
So that's why we really stopped doing that. It just wasn't working in our whole system.
Yeah.
And again, it's important that whatever systems we do in the field helps save time in the pack shed.
Of course. Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point is that oftentimes we might look at where can we cut time in one side of it, but then, like you said, does it add time somewhere else? And
you nailed it.
Yep.
Yep.
So, okay. So you're hand transplanting into landscape fabric.
That's right.
And where obviously that increases time a little bit, but you save time later. So
correct. Yeah, exactly. And again, here in West Tennessee, if it's bare soil on transplant, we have to cultivate twice a week to keep those weeds at bay.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that completely eliminated that whole step.
And then you're using drip irrigation underneath that, or do you need to use it in the winter as well? Or is there demand enough that you have to keep it consistent?
In the winter, we kind of farm, I guess, on the more of the dry soil farming where we're only watering maybe once a month on a warm day. I found that keeping that soil drier in the winter, it really helps prevent soil-borne pathogens and diseases, keeps them from spreading. So in our cat tunnels, we have a dual irrigation system. We have drip tape that goes under fabric, and we also have overhead Netafim misters.
Okay. So you got both. And
both.
What do you find that you can use, especially the overhead, as ways to help mitigate the extreme temperature swings? I know some farmers play around with adding moisture, reducing moisture to deal with those cold snaps. What have you learned in that?
We haven't done that much. What we have found is anytime that we get our plants wet in those tunnels and they don't dry off fast enough, it just tends to cause problems. So we like to use drip as much as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Hey, podcast listeners, we're going to pause for a moment to hear from one of our show sponsors. BCS two-wheel tractors are designed and built in Italy, where small-scale farming has been a way of life for generations. Discover the beauty of BCS on your farm with PTO-driven implements for soil working, shredding cover crops, spreading compost, mowing under fences, clearing snow, and more, all powered by a single gear-driven machine that's tailored to the size and scale of your operation. Tractors and attachments are on sale now. Find sale pricing and your nearest dealer at bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. All right, back to the show. And what are those challenges that you are noticing specifically with the lettuce crop that are the hardest to mitigate? Is it the crop shock of rapid temperature swings? Is it some pest pressure, humidity? What are you finding are the biggest challenges?
I do think that the biggest challenge would be rapid changes in temperature. So if it goes from a 70-degree sunny day down to a 12-degree night, those extremes, lettuce, and even crops like chard and celery and kale, they do have a hard time, weathering those shocks. And this again is kind of why we try to flirt with the edge of cold tolerance early in the season to help get those crops acclimated. The second challenge would definitely be aphids. Aphids love those tunnels. You know how it is. Once, one aphid, 2 weeks later, there's going to be, 500,000 of them. So it's really just watching for those aphids, which is another reason why I don't like to use row cover in the winter, because it really does harbor those aphids. And this is really especially a problem with spinach and head lettuce. They just love those two crops.
And what do you do to prevent them or deal with them if you get them?
We like to use neem oil as a preventive. Oftentimes, I've experimented with ladybugs, but in cat tunnels, they just escape, out of those cat tunnels. Ladybugs can be pretty effective in a greenhouse where it's more of a self-contained and sealed environment. But I found just knowing that it's going to be a problem and just doing light applications of safer soap or neem oil before it becomes a problem really helps. Just keeps everything under control. I'm not aiming for a bug-free farm because we're working with nature. And so that's not my goal. But the goal is to keep our customers from freaking out from an aphid looking back at them when they eat that salad.
Yes. Or even the black husks of the, where they get parasitized, that's also annoying because they're hard to get off the leaf.
Yes, 100%. Yes. And I tell you, the most complaint we've had is ladybugs. Like, people freak out if they see a ladybug in a head of lettuce, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, our customer satisfaction is number one. And so we kind of have to make them happy.
Yeah. Well, you do an amazing job from what I've seen on social media with your farmers market displays. I mean, they're just so like abundant and colorful and
right.
And so I can imagine you've just created all this eye candy for your customers. How can they not come to 100%. Your stand?
Exactly.
So exactly. So how have you learned to create that and manage that? And I think your kids help quite a bit too, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think early on it was more on creating the sense of abundance. So if you look at the data, like 1 acre farm versus some other vendors that are on 20 or 80 acres, obviously they're producing a lot more produce, but visually it looks like we're the biggest farm there. And a lot of it is just trying to not be so spread out and more going vertical. We have some layout challenges that we kind of have to work around, making sure that the line moves. What's been really satisfying to me is my daughter, Asha, when she was around 12 or 13, she became interested in the farmers market. And then last year, and so every year, she's kind of taken on more responsibility and checkout, and then now she can set it up. So her goal, she's 15, so she wants ownership of that market when she gets a driver's license. So she is now set up to where she can set it up. Obviously, she's 15, so she needs a driver, but she can set it up, deal with the customers, tear it down, pack it up. So basically what you see on there is her setting that up.
Yeah.
Like she has got, she's on it.
That's amazing. I mean, how empowering too for a teenager to have that responsibility and, take ownership over something.
Yes. I've had a few vendors ask me, because there was a few times when I dropped her off and she ran it. And then, she did better without me there than when I was there. And so some vendors asked me, hey, do you feel bad that she can do a better job than you? I'm like, no. Like, it makes my heart happy. I am filled with joy. Like, I'm proud of her. Like, this is the goal from the very beginning, is that we could give our children this opportunity and them take it on.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that will last, We are giving her a small percentage of all the sales, which gives her initiative, like, hey, if I move this around and we get, this much more, I'll make more.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of helped give her a little bit more drive to take some ownership of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just also what a great story too. I mean, the customers get to have this whole family farm experience and,
Exactly.
they get to buy produce from a teenager. I mean, who knows way more about vegetables than they do, right?
Yeah, it's been really a proud moment of just kind of watching her take some ownership and in some case do a much better job than I have. She's got fresh eyes, she's excited, she's young, and so she's kind of taking it further.
Yeah. And are your other kids sort of following in those footsteps too, or yes and no?
Ahava, yes. She doesn't quite have the eye for it, but she's a social butterfly. So she loves to check out and she can talk and, she loves the old people. And so some of my younger sons are indifferent. What I try to do with my children, this is it's a hard line to balance, but I don't make my children work on the farm. It's there if they want to. And also what we do with the farm is that if you work on the farm, you're going to get paid. Right. So no free labor, no favors. If you work, you're going to get rewarded for it. And if you don't, that's fine. There's absolutely no pressure. I think that's helped foster and prevent some bitterness and burnout where, they know that, hey, if we go to the market, we can make some really good money and buy this thing we want. And if
we're still going to eat at night,
no big deal. But we're still going to eat at night. And so, yeah. And I think when Asha was 12 or 13, I think she was going with me about half the year to markets. And then when she turned 13, she was like, all right, I want to do this every single Saturday. I want to save up for a truck. So she's calculated how much she needs to make a week. And so she's very driven by money.
And so in addition to your kids, how many other employees do you have? And what does that look like throughout the year?
Yes. So I have this winter, for the last few years, I had, I guess, two full-time employees and one was part-time. And then this winter, my younger employee, she just graduated from college. She had some more days and she's kind of in between what she wants to do. And so I took her on full-time this winter. So we now have 3 full-time employees. They work 40 hours a week and they're year-round.
And have you found it easy to retain your employees? Has it been kind of a revolving door season to season, or how have you been able to kind of create that stability?
Yeah. So in the early years, it was tough, mainly because there's a few things. One, I had a hard time paying them what they needed to stay on. That's always a challenge when you're first starting out. And then I would say about probably 7 years ago, and I'll kind of back up. So when it came to employees, my wife and I really wanted this to be just us. Just us, no employees from the get-go. Like we weren't really interested in having help. And then in 2015, when our daughter got sick and my wife had to go full-time nursing and it was just me by myself and I was working 100 hours a week, I'm like, all right. Now, all of a sudden, I became a slave to my farm. And so we changed our mindset where we wanted the farm to work for us. We want the farm, no matter what happened with our family, we want the farm to be able to go on, thrive, and us, get a salary each week, regardless of how many hours we work or how many hours our children work. So I have the farm set up to work from 100% by my team without us is how that's set up. So really about 7 years ago, we kind of started this new kind of way of just asking ourselves, can someone else do this task? If yes, absolutely. And if the answer was no, we started asking ourselves, how can we simplify the system where anyone can do this? So now the way we have it is we've been able to keep people year after year by just paying them really, really well. In a sense to where there is no job in the county that will pay as much as we pay. Like, I mean, unless they become an attorney or a lawyer or a doctor, like we kind of sought to be the highest paid employer in the county.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Yeah.
That
on doing
helps.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's really helped. Like people feel like, hey, this is a really good job. It's 8 hours a day. We get paid a few week paid vacation holidays. So, they have workman's comp, we really, W-2, we really treat them like a good employer would. And I think that goes a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, just the work environment too probably has a whole nother level of, intrigue and satisfaction too. Right. So.
Well, yeah. And so one thing we try to do is, each year I have this philosophy that is what got us here today will not get us where we want to go tomorrow. And so everyone knows that we're constantly changing. We're constantly evolving. We're asking ourselves, how can we grow more nutrient-dense produce better this year than last year? And how can we increase our customer service? And so with that comes challenges. We have new goals that we're trying to set. And then, when we make when we really grow a beautiful crop, we try to celebrate that. One thing we added last year was weekly team lunches. So once a week, people will take turns and we'll make meals and we'll share a meal together, and just having that kind of time to, be with one another. And I think just having those little things, culture, goes a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, to feel like you're part of something bigger for sure always is a huge advantage. Yeah.
Right. And I think kind of laying out like what our mission is and principles and standards, and where kind of everyone knows what's to be expected, and kind of where we're going.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, your kids are, still pretty young, but are you talking about future plans, succession plans, what it's going to look like? Are you already having those conversations? Because good on you if you are.
100%. Yes. And I've already talked to Asha. I mean, I think it's hard to know what our younger ones are doing. But there is a lot more to farm, because it is a business, right? It's not just the actual act of harvesting lettuce and picking and taking to the market. There's a lot of other things behind the scene that needs to be managed for it to be a profitable and sustaining farm that can keep, stay in business and thrive and grow. So we are kind of talking right now. Our oldest daughter, she hasn't, we don't really know what she's going to do. She's still pretty young. But we have talked to her about, hey, if you ever want this one day, we don't want you to feel the pressure, but it's here for you to have if you want it. I'm still very young, so I got lots of years left in me. However, so that's definitely a conversation that we're having on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so important, and it's so often not discussed until the very end. So
I know, exactly. Yeah. And we've even gone as far as like, okay, if something were to happen to me and Asha's still young, how can we set this up where someone can kind of come in and do my role? And so these are conversations that we're actively having and looking at how all this stuff would look like.
Yeah, no, it's really, really inspiring. And how do you feel like your farm and what you've created has impacted the broader community? I mean, are there more farms starting to crop up, in the area, or are you really it? And what do people think of you?
There's been a lot of farmers come and go in the area, which is probably not any different from anywhere else, I would say. I think in general, as a business, I mean, I think it's 500,000 small businesses go out of business every single year here in the U.S. So I don't think farming is any different than a business in that sense, except, we're dealing with nature and there's a lot of other factors that we're kind of dealing with. So I've seen a lot of farmers kind of come. I do think, in the way I kind of approach, especially farmers that are going to the same market, I feel like we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to feed our communities. And so anything I can do to help them, whether it be a farm tour or sit with them for a few hours at the market or email or show them how we do our stores. I do want to see more local farmers here in Tennessee, because there's just not enough.
Yeah.
Like, I should not be the only produce farmer in the county.
Right. Yeah.
There should be more of us.
Do you feel, though, you're able to reach, people that may not normally shop at a farmer's market? I mean, are you able to, so your products have a broader reach than just the niche market? Yeah.
100%. 100%. One thing we've tried to do is that there's some really kind of, there's some really great kind of nonprofits that we really kind of partnered with. There's, because yes, farming needs to be a business and sales, but it's also about trying to get our produce. We do think it's special. We think, we grow this food with love, and we would like to share this with as many people as we can. There's this organization called the Giving Garden, and we donate quite a bit of produce to them every year. That goes to a kitchen that makes pre-made, ready-to-eat salads for a cancer hospital that gets donated. Yeah, and so I think we're seeing our products in a lot more people's stores. A lot more people come to our on-farm store. Word is definitely spreading.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's so great to feel like you're having a bigger impact than just your small little sales
100%.
outlets.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, good. Well, any sort of future dreams, visions of what's next? Do you have kind of a how you want to see the farm in a few years?
So I've got a new project that I'm working on, and in our 1 acre farm, there's uh, now that we're really primarily retail, farmers market, on farm store, online, we've gotten a lot of, I wouldn't say complaints, but a lot of requests for other vegetables. And so they would like to see more variety, which you can only grow so much variety on 1 acre. We do a lot, but we can only do so much that makes that makes business sense. So I've leased a 2 acre field nearby, and that is going to be a lot of longer growing storage crops. And I've got some ideas for some cover crop trials. This would be all open field. So that is something that my daughter Asha and I started last fall. We kind of broke ground. We got a grid laid out. And so we're going to be planting that pretty hard next month. So that's kind of be a nice new exciting venture. We're excited to get garlic and potatoes and popcorn and sweet corn and watermelon and cantaloupe, and I think our customers are going to really love having that variety.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. It's great when you can diversify into those crops that you, I'm sure, love to eat yourself too. So
yes, yes. More cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. A lot of those crops just don't make the kind of money per bed that it needs to make to pay my team what they need to get paid.
Exactly. Yep. And so this expansion, do you feel like the numbers are going to work, even though, the cost per square foot is not going to be as great?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. It's going to work because, it's going to work.
Well, good. I like that sheer determination. You're like, it's going to work.
Yes, it's going to work. It's going to work. It may take us 2 years to really get our soil established, and the weeds out there are unlike anything I've ever seen. But we've got a plan, and we know we can sell it. So it's just a matter of, and it's going to be a lot more laid back. Just 2 or 3 crop rotations versus 8.
Right. Yep.
So it's going to be a lot more easygoing. I would say it's going to be a slow farm. Just nice and easy.
You got your fast farm and your slow farm.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the slow farm. This is my personal kind of project that I'm launching.
Well, good. Well, speaking of fast and slow, I think time to shift gears into our lightning round, which I seem to have to start calling it the slow lightning round because it might start off fast, but then it gets slow. But are you ready to jump into those questions?
I'm excited. Let's go for it.
Okay, great. Well, number 1 is, what gets you up in the morning?
Yes. I think for me, the biggest motivation is it's another chance to make today better than yesterday. We all make mistakes, and there's days don't go how they're planned. But in the morning when I wake up, I really feel, in my soul, hey, this is a chance to really make today better than yesterday. And I think it's just that sense of hope, right? That, hey, things can be better. I'm going to make it better. We're going to learn. And I just can't wait to, get up and get out here and look at the crops and make it happen again.
What is the hardest part of farming?
Oh, weather. Weather is brutal. It's brutal. Last winter or last spring, we had a tornado come through 1,000 feet away from our farm. Winds, heat, cold. It's the same story, I think, for every farmer. Weather it's challenging.
Yeah. And we were talking, earlier about this. You were sharing that this winter in particular has been one of the coldest, snowiest winters that you've had. And so that's a whole new learning curve, right?
It's a whole new, yes, absolutely. And it's like, there was one week the team couldn't even get in because of all the ice and snow. Tennessee's not set up to clear 10 inches of snow off roads. Yeah. So that's just a whole nother challenge of like, these are things we can't control. And so, yeah, it's just rolling with the punches.
Yeah. And meanwhile, up here in Maine, we're getting like a very mild winter with not much snow.
Yes. You can have it back.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know. Okay. Next question. Favorite way to relax or self-care activity, or how do you take care of your body, heart, and mind as a farmer?
This is a good one. I really do love nature. There's something about nature that is just wild and beautiful, and there's so much peace, right? And nature doesn't really care about what's going on in your life or in your business. And it's a whole different environment. And I've just found that really just disconnecting from the world and life and business and embracing the peace that nature has to offer, my goodness, it's just it just cleanses everything. So I found, that there'll be days if it's a tough day at work or I just need time to reset, just a nice hour or two walk in the woods. Oh, it'll just change everything. So that's definitely a really great way that just recharges my body, just having that time.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It just reminded me that you and your family were former real farmer care recipients.
Yes.
So speaking of sort of, trying to focus on self-care, do you remember what you did with, it wasn't all, it was a small amount of money. It was like $100, but do you remember what you did with it?
I gave it to my wife. I can't remember what she did. I think we probably went out.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
How do you define success on your farm and as a farmer?
All right. So there's two questions there. The first one on the farm, I think the first driver of success is we want to feed our customers nutrient-dense food. So that's number one, which there's a lot of things, taking care of the soil and the plants and the people. And then also being able to take care of my team, right? Giving them what they need, making sure that, that they feel like they're seen and that they're appreciated. So I think having a farm that can do both is really important. And for me, this is really kind of goes back to like what started the farm still drives us to this day. So we wanted to give our family an opportunity to farm, and we wanted to make sure that the farm gave us some sense of home work-life balance, which there's no such thing as perfect, pure balance, but it's at least something that we can keep working on to achieve. And so I think for me, as a farmer, that's really a big metric in success is how close am I getting to having a business that my children could take over one day. That's a big one. That they don't grow up hating, which I see so many children hate, farms growing up, and also, just making sure that I'm able to be a part of my family's life. It's very easy for a farm to completely rule a farm owner's life. Very, very easy.
What do you love besides farming?
I do enjoy playing music. And you'll probably hear me say this more, but I really do enjoy nature. I really get a lot. Like that is something I genuinely enjoy. Multi-day overnight hikes with no cell phone, and me and a few of my older children. That's something that I really, really enjoy.
What instruments do you play, or what music?
So I play. So there's this. I play an Irish instrument called the uilleann pipes, which stands for, it's a Gaelic word for elbow. So instead of blowing into a bag, you're actually pumping air into the bag. That's what I
Cool.
play.
That is, I never would have guessed that. Learn something new. And do you have a band that you play with, or is it with your family, or yeah?
So I did when I was younger. Yep, we would travel and tour. And then as I got older, we had a tragic accident that happened to our guitarist, and so we just kind of put that on pause. But my two older boys are starting to learn music now, and so we're starting to play a lot more together, which has been really enjoyable.
Oh gosh, I can just see it now. You'll be at the farmer's market with, your
Yes.
beautiful display, and then you'll be playing music on the side. And
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. How do you relate to that which is out of your control?
Ah, yes. So this is obviously something that I think everyone has to probably deals with differently. The way I kind of deal with this is if I can't control it, I've just tried to learn to accept it. It is what it is. And I also feel like some things that I feel are out of control, there is some level of responsibility that I could take in being prepared the next time. Right. And so I think, because once I think about, okay, I can't do anything about this, then, resentment can kind of creep in, and then you start pointing the finger at other people, where I try to take this as a teaching moment on, you know what, I'm going to be prepared for this next time, right? In some way, whether it be, there's so many things are out of our control. And then another way that I try to deal with it is, life is not fair. It's not going to go the way you want it to. And that's okay. That's part of being human, right? And then just focusing on the things that you can control. Because there's lots of things I have control of. And there's lots of, there's this exercise I do at the end of the year. And I make 2 lists of mistakes or things that happened that didn't go well. There's a list of things that I could have prevented and controlled, and a list of things that I can't control. And usually the list of things that I had a part to play in is way longer than those things that I could not control. And so I just shift my focus onto those things that I can control. I had a part to play in. I can do better next time. And that usually keeps me pretty mentally occupied, where there's not much time to really dwell on the things that I can't control.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a great suggestion of how to break things down into pieces that you can wrap your head around. So, yeah.
Right. And that's good to do with your team. Or at least I've done with my team, is they'll be like, when that tornado came through, that was really hard. Like, everyone's like, man, all this work. And none of us had any control. Right. But what we did, and this was a part of the reason why I did this other lease, because it was like, okay, I need to have some other crops, storage crops, so in case we do get completely ruined by a tornado, we can be better prepared, right? And so we kind of all looked at, hey, if we would have had more storage crops or other crops somewhere else, we would have a lot more insurance. And so that was a really good way where I kind of let the team know, hey, we got this problem. It's going to take us a little bit to rebuild, but we're going to be prepared next time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice. What do you long for, and how does that influence how you farm?
One of the things I really long for is, I want to have a good, positive relationship with my family. And everything kind of goes through that filter, right? Of making sure that the farm is successful, not just financially, but also this work-life balance where they feel like, okay, dad's never home for supper and he's just too tired and he's always stressed, right? Because that has a big effect on children, especially when they're young. So that's really what I am trying to strive for each day is like, how can I foster a healthy relationship? I'm not looking to shelter them from a hard life because the world is very hard. It's a hard place to live in. So, but um, I don't want them to grow up and think that, dad was just so disconnected and so consumed with work that, he didn't have time for us. Um, so that's something that I long for at the end of the day when I'm on my funeral, that I know that my children love me. Right. And so I want that. Like that's a big goal of mine. Which takes every day, every week, just making sure that I'm making steps to make that happen, right? These are things that I have some control over, at least my part to play. They're going to grow older and make their own choices. But I know that I know I have the ability to foster an environment to make them hate me and hate the farm. Like that, it's not that hard to make happen. So so I think everything through the farm is kind of through that lens, right? Where's the balance?
Yes.
Where's the opportunity? When to tell them, hey, you should stay home and get some rest.
Yeah, I love that.
And also making sure that they know that a relationship is not just about work, that there's other hobbies and other things that they love to do, or other things that I love to do outside of work that they can see me enjoy doing.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's great. Right. It reminds me of sort of the idea of like a lot of people might put the farm as the number one priority, right? And then everything else sort of falls behind that. And you're really shifting this as if you're saying like the relationships are the priority and the farm is the container for those relationships. So I love that. Yeah.
Yes. The farm should help foster a healthy lifestyle, right? And again, this is not an easy balance to make, and this is something that I have to ask myself every day. And there is moments of the year where it's like, okay, guys, we've got storm coming. We're gonna have to work at a few extra hours today, but aside for the exception, I'm really trying to ask and just check myself, and also check in with them. How are they feeling? If they make a comment of we're getting tired, or Dad, we haven't gone on a walk in a while, just paying attention to some of those moments.
Yeah. Yeah. Aw, you sound like such a great dad.
It's a work in progress.
What do you feel is your gift to give on behalf of people and the land?
I would say hope. I feel like we really had, we didn't have a great start into what we're doing. And I kind of feel like if I could pull this off, anyone can, with the right steps and knowledge and mindsets. I think more farmers need more hope. There's so many things happening that's out of our control that almost seems hopeless. Like, will it ever get better? And I do hear local farmers, they'll say, Ray, it doesn't seem to get any easier, right? But, I think when they kind of look and go, well, okay, maybe we can change some things, because obviously you're hopeful and you're loving what you're doing. And I think that's one thing I try to do with other local farmers is just give them hope. Like, hey, if you're starting out, it's going to be hard. You should expect it to be hard, but it does get easier. It gets much, much easier. And there's a lot more joy that can be had from tending the land. So I think that's one thing that I really try to offer to give people is just hope. People need more hope.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope that people listening to this podcast will be inspired by your example and everything that you've created. So, yeah. And finally, how will you grow old, or how are you growing old farming?
Yeah, I still feel young. I'm only 42 years old. So in a sense, I feel like I've just gotten started. There is this sense of I am getting started. However, I have started to really pay attention to my body. I've watched other folks, and they're really struggling just with their body and mindset. And so I have been actively, fasting and working out and doing cold plunges and just and also even simple things, breathing exercises and just being more present. I love working. Like it's I mean I to me working can be a form of recreation because I love it so much. I love the journey. I love sacrificing today for a better tomorrow. And so I can get caught up in that drive, right? Where I forget, hey, I've only got one body. I got one shot at this life. And I do want to do this growing old, and I better pay attention to taking care of my body, mind, and soul now so I can keep doing this in the future. I feel young today, but I may not feel that way in 10 years.
Well, it sounds like you have plenty of, thoughtfulness and intention around this whole journey. So I think you're in good position to grow old gracefully. So, well, good. Well, thank you, Ray. I could talk to you all day. You're just such a joy to speak with. And, I mean, the inspiration of what you've been able to create with very little to start, how involved your family has been in this whole process and how you prioritize them and the community and the land. It's really, really inspiring. And I'm so grateful that you've been here to share your story with everyone. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor, Clara. Thank you.
Today's show was produced by me, Clara Coleman, with support from No-Till Growers. Special thank you to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Thank you to the patrons at patreon.com/no-till growers for helping to make this show possible. Thank you all for listening.